Hello and welcome to Twisted Britain, a podcast on true crime in Britain with a sprinkling of the weird and the macabre. Your hosts are...
Me, Bob Dale.
And me, Nadine Royal.
They're a couple of friends who met in the pub and developed a friendship based on the mutual love of booze, podcasts and pub quizzes. They met in the Settle in Stirling and that's where they record. Each week they both tell a story of something twisted, one long one and one short one, and they decide who goes first based on the flip of a coin.
Thank you very much. For those of you who are normal listeners, you will have heard a different voice there. What we have with us tonight is we have Emma, who is one of our wonderful Patreons and has been so generous to us that we have invited her along to do our intro. Thank you very much, Emma.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. This is the first time we've ever done this, and I'm guessing the first time you've ever done this as well.
Yes, definitely.
Emma, you're going to join us for the rest of the episode, and we'll just crack on as normal.
Yeah, I think so.
In fact, this is difficult with three of us, isn't it?
I know. Let's start with Emma. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. How are you both?
We're good.
We're good. Well, Nadine's had a bit of a flustered week. I've just had a full rundown of it before we started, but we'll not bore everybody with it. But she's here, and she's prepped and ready to go.
Just about.
I've had a good week.
Good. I
have decided to do a story this week that I've been saving for a wee while. It's a big one.
Stop looking at me like that.
I've saved it up so that when we have a guest, I can do a nice big.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So this one's especially for you, Emma.
I feel very honoured.
That's all right. Well, why don't we start with? Obviously, you're a big fan of Twisted Britain. Thank you very much. But
very big fan.
What other kind of podcasts do you listen to?
The podcast that first got me into podcasts again was actually Seeing Red.
Oh, we love Seeing Red.
We are big fans of Bethan and Mark.
I've known Bethan for quite a few years. We've kind of like popped in and out of each other's lives for quite a few years. So I think when I found out that Bethan was co-hosting the podcast, I decided to give it a listen, and that kind of sparked me off listening to them all again.
Oh, that's really nice, actually.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is. And then I've kind of grown with a few others. Like I think my other favourite that's not related to true crime is the No Sleep podcast.
Oh, I love the No Sleep podcast.
Yeah, you've spoken about this one before.
I love them.
They are good.
Not one I've listened to, actually.
Give it a go, for sure.
Oh, totally worth it. I mean, you don't even need to listen to any of the episodes in order. I split it between seasons, listen to them sort of on the way to work. They're really good to listen to.
I shall add it to my ever-expanding list of podcasts.
Yeah, I do that with them as well. I never listen in order. I just kind of like choose one based on the description and go for it. And it's always, always, always good.
Yeah, they had a really good one for the end of their season finale recently, which was quite a long one to listen to. I listened to it over about 2 days, but it was so gripping.
Oh, I don't think I've listened to that one yet, actually.
We can't say anything about long podcasts. We quite often trip over the hour mark, which we tried to aim for, but never mind. We are, as normal, in the Settle In. We're in the cellar this evening, so you are one of the honoured guests to have ever been in the cellar. We're lucky to be here this evening, actually. Stirling was hit with mad flash floods yesterday.
We're almost washed away.
Oh, no.
So the Settle's only just been washed out.
It was genuinely awful. Like, loads of the businesses have been totally flooded, and like a couple of them have closed their doors until they've sorted it. Our beloved Settle In had to close its doors last night because not only was water flooding in, but also out because the drains in the cellar couldn't take it and popped like a geyser. So it's been a bit mad. But
not even an act of God will stop Twisted Britain.
Nothing will stop Bob from getting a pint.
Oh, no, absolutely not. So, like I said, we're going to launch into our episode, but feel free to jump in whenever you want. If it's a story you've heard of, please do chip in. If it's not one that you heard of, we always love a reaction. So, without further ado...
Flip that coin. I think Emma should call the flip.
Oh, yeah, okay, call it.
Oh, that is a big honour, actually. I say Tails, Bob goes first.
Tails, Bob goes first.
Oh, Tails it is.
Nice.
Okay, fine.
Ooh.
So this week is my first week in a while that I've had to think about what I'm doing because I've not got a Glasgow miniseries one to do. But like I say, I went back to one that I'd read about recently. It appeared in the newspapers not that long ago because the person concerned was talked about being released.
Oh.
Thankfully, he doesn't look like he will be, and you'll understand why by the time I get to the end of this. So this is The Devil's Disciple. Don't
know it.
Right? This is the story.
I like the name.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? He was also called The Psychopath.
Oh.
This is a guy called Patrick David MacKay. So Patrick MacKay is one of Britain's most prolific, yet least known serial killers. He is currently one of a very small number of people in Britain to have been handed a whole life term, and is on this list with the likes of Rose West and Peter Tobin. Peter MacKay was convicted of 3 murders in 1975, but later confessed to 11. Now, this is a bit of an odd case, because it's a man who is medically diagnosed as a psychopath.
I love it.
Yeah, I thought you would. And I'm going to go out on a limb at the beginning here and say, this to me is a case of nurture over nature, creating somebody.
Okay.
I like this.
I'm not giving him an excuse for anything he did, but I do believe he was a product of his environment that he grew up in. It's just, that's a kind of wee side thought of my own as such, and I'll touch on that at the end, because I know by the time I read this, you're both going to go, no, he was a horrible bastard. So Mackay was born in Middlesex on the 25th of September 1952 into a very violent life. He was the subject of abuse that started even before he was born. His horrible alcoholic father once kicked his mother in the stomach while she was pregnant with Patrick.
Oh.
His mother was a woman of Creole descent from Guyana. Now, I had no idea what Creole was. So
No, I'm not going to say it. You go.
Okay. So I had a quick look up, and basically what it is, they are an ethnic group which originated during the colonial era from racial mixing between Europeans and non-European people. So they were a kind of an ethnic group into themselves that were mixed race, essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Do you know, I had a quick look into one, a very reputable source on Wikipedia, of course, into what they were, and it almost screamed mistressed slaves and white masters.
Oh.
Which, when you say it out loud like that, isn't great, but they seem to have taken it on board as this is now their ethnicity.
Yeah, they've owned it. They've made it their own.
Exactly. So Patrick was the subject of relentless abuse from his drunken father throughout his early life, right up until the point of his father's early death that can be attributed to both drink and a weak heart. Reportedly, his father's last words to him were, "Remember to be good," which, as you can probably guess, since we're talking about him now, he didn't really heed that advice. The death of his father did hit Patrick quite hard, even though he had been a horrible, horrible man. He still didn't take it very well, to the point where he even carried a photograph of his father around with him, telling people that he was still alive.
Wow.
During his childhood, Patrick was not a very nice young man at all. He indulged in arson, animal cruelty, and on one occasion he even put the family tortoise on a fire.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't think you were going to like this bit. Obviously the tortoise, I nearly said turtle there, but I know the difference.
Good.
After he died, he threw it over the fence into the neighbour's garden.
Jesus. Do you know, they always start with fucking animal cruelty, don't they? But I've learned recently, and I'm really, really impressed by it, the SSPCA, which is the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, they have this programme where it's specifically aimed towards kids who have been found to be cruel to animals, like harming animals, and they get them into the centres, like into the rehoming centres.
Oh, that's cool.
And like take them around for the day and stuff, and like show them kind of like, this is the product of what happens when animals are mistreated. Like they're now here with us, like look how, you know, it's not nice, like them living in kennels.
A bit of shock therapy almost.
Yeah, but I think like more so what they try to aim to do is just like make a nice relationship between the kids and the animals, and be like, you know, like you shouldn't harm them, and like we should look after them and that kind of stuff. It's like an educational tool, and I think it's like really impressive. And apparently this year there's been like a sudden rise in young girls abusing animals. There's more girls doing it than boys just now, which is like, that
shouldn't have surprised me, but
yeah, weirdly it does though, huh?
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Guardian Angels, and I think it's very impressive.
They should have gone with cuddle it, don't kick it. No?
No.
Okay. All right, okay. He also had another hobby, which was to put dead birds on the road to watch what happened with them when they got run over by cars. Cars.
That's not good, is it?
So now we've both spoken off air probably about a thing called the McDonald Triad. Mm-hmm. Now, most people that listen to kind of true crime things will kind of have an idea of what the McDonald Triad is. And basically, it's a suggestion that a combination of animal cruelty, arson, and bedwetting in childhood is indicative of later aggression and violent behaviour in adults. However, this is a very contested set of indicators because there's never been a published review that has been a published critical review or a consolidation of literature that establishes whether this has empirical support. And the University of Kent have published a wee thing about whether this is a thing or isn't.
Okay.
So I had a wee read of it earlier, and my conclusion was it might be an indicator, but it's not what causes it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, we did a little bit, touched on that a bit when I was in college in my sociology courses. And we had kind of the same thing. It was kind of, it's always kind of that stereotype, isn't it? That an early psychopath will injure animals or set fires, but it's never been, you can't test every psychopath to find out whether or not that's true.
No,
I suppose. So
and you can't take every child that does that and assume they're a psychopath either.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm pretty sure every child at some point in their time has wet the bed or, done something which, as kids, isn't something that you'd have as an adult.
Yeah.
But I may have set one or two fires in my past. You never know.
Did you?
I never set fire to a building, but matches are really cool to play with when you're like 10 years old.
Yeah, it's the aerosol spray cans.
Yeah, exactly.
That kids were always interested in as kids.
I say that, however, but here we are recording a true crime podcast. Maybe it has something.
Because it's like quite interesting though.
Wow.
Because like even in that show, Mindhunter, about the FBI agent who stereotypes and like can like work out who the criminal is based on like their personality traits and stuff. Because that's received like massive backlash because it's not like a good science and you can't apply it. But then at the same time, he did have great success with it. So you're like, well.
Yeah, and I think that was the point. Why I put it in here was because although it's not proven to be a thing,
this is a good example.
Peter MacKay falls into the perfect example of somebody who did that. Mm-hmm. So there's no record of him being a bedwetter, but I'm going to go out on a limb there and say if he was a beaten child, there's every chance he was.
He's a bedwetter, yeah.
Anyway, Patrick, not Peter. I said as MacKay got a bit older, and when I say older, I mean still a child. So he was under the age of 15. He was prone to extreme tantrums and bullying of younger children. He stole from the elderly residents in the surrounding area, and on one occasion even tried to kill his aunt and mother by strangulation.
Oh.
Wow.
He also very nearly killed a younger boy who lived on the estate near him, again by strangulation, saying in later life that he would have been successful in killing him if he hadn't been stopped and restrained. At 13 years old, he was taken into an institution, and I'm doing air quotes for institution because that's my polite way of saying mental hospital. And this was his first time into an institution. I think mental hospital is all right when you're talking about the 70s.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. He was originally taken in for trying to set fire to a Catholic church.
Oh.
By the time he was 15, he'd been diagnosed as a psychopath by psychiatrist Dr. Leonard Carr, who was quoted as saying he would grow up to be a cold, psychopathic killer. And I guarantee you there's never been a truer statement said. At this point, Patrick is locked up in Moss Side Hospital for 4 years. Now, Moss Side Hospital isn't there anymore, but it was a kind of secure unit for people with psychotic tendencies and mental illnesses. He was there for 4 years, finally being released in 1972. However, all the research that I said, now I'm not trained in any form in this at all, but I don't believe he should have been released. At this point, he'd developed a rather unhealthy fascination with Hitler and the Nazi Party. Now, I find that odd because, like I said, he's of mixed race descendants, and I don't think him and Hitler would have gotten on very well.
No.
But neither of them were particularly nice, so that doesn't really matter. He had assumed the name at this point of Franklin Bulvolt the First.
Very regal.
Yes. But do you have to call yourself the first
If you're the first?
If you're the first?
No.
Well, it depends, I suppose, if he wanted there to be a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a good point there. Maybe he was planning a second Franklin.
Franklin Bulvert.
Bulvolt. Which is apparently, according to him, a name that would to be feared like Hitler's.
Oh.
I've written here in bold letters, wanker. He had also decorated his room in Nazi memorabilia, even making a fake stormtrooper uniform.
Jesus Christ.
Now, I've got no problem with LARPing. In fact, I quite like going out and seeing these medieval jousters.
Yeah.
But stormtrooper LARPing's a next step.
It's next level, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Do you know, I thought, is it illegal to sell Nazi memorabilia?
No, I don't think so.
Right, okay. Because I thought I don't know why, but I thought it was. And then the other weekend, I was in the Barrowlands in Glasgow in the markets, and there was, in this antique shop, one whole section was just Nazi memorabilia, and I was like, I don't know if this is okay.
There's a lot of stuff in the Barrowlands that isn't legal, though.
This is true.
That sounds like a fun place.
Yeah, if anybody that's not
really
been to a
good.
Barrowlands, it is absolutely brilliant and has one of the best music venues in Scotland, actually.
Yeah, the Barrowlands music venue is absolutely the tits.
Yeah, proper old dance hall.
I think they've got this
sprung
like
floor,
on the
whole lot.
wall, like the poster that says like rules, and all of the rules say is like no drugs, no fighting, no stage diving. That's it.
And that's all everybody does. So after Mackay's release in 1972, he made friends with a priest by the name of Father Anthony Crean. They actually met while they were out on a walk, and Father Crean believed that showing him love and compassion was the way to help him out and transform him. Patrick repaid this kindness by breaking into the father's house and robbing him.
I wish you could see my face right now.
He stole a cheque that he tried to cash for 80 quid and got caught. He was arrested and prosecuted for the theft. However, the priest had, not on the priest orders, the priest had said he didn't want to press charges on him. But the police pressed charges, and he was ordered to pay back the money in a fine, which he never did.
Classic.
So at this point, Patrick moves to London, and it's thought that the reason that this happened was because of the bad blood that was developed between him and Father Crean. Although that wasn't a mutual bad blood. The priest didn't feel any ill will to him. We don't know for sure that there's a possibility that at this point Patrick committed his first murder. He's thought to have thrown a tramp off a bridge into the Thames for nothing more than coughing as he walked past.
Oh, I'd be dead. Imagine me.
Oh, you are literally the worst person coughing.
You would have kicked me right off a bridge by now.
I'd kick you right off this podcast in a minute.
See, my issue's normally sneezing, so I'm safe, I
You're
think.
safe.
Oh, at least you can see that coming, though. I could at least turn your volume down if I can see you sneezing. Nadine
I just
sneaks
splutter all
a
over.
cough out all the time. However, like I say, there's a possibility that this was his first murder because this has only come from a confession
Right.
later on, so he wasn't prosecuted for that. In July of 1973, he killed an au pair by the name of Heidi Milk, who he strangled on a train and threw her off the train near New Cross.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's serious.
Threw her
Did you
off
say
the
her name was Milk?
Heidi Milk.
M-N-I-L-K. Milk?
Milk.
Milk?
I was just thinking of the fact that you had Priest Cream and Heidi Milk.
It's very good, actually.
Yeah, he's got a dairy fetish.
How do you chuck somebody off a train exactly? What year is this?
1973.
Oh, is it going to be one of the ones where the doors just you can just fling it wide open?
It's not Hogwarts, darling.
You got trains like that weren't in Harry Potter. In fact, I've been on one recently.
All right, okay. Showing your train poshness now. So later that month, he's also been associated with the murder of Mary Haynes, who was found beaten to death in her Kentish Town flat in the northwest of London. January of the following year, 1974, he stabbed to death Stephanie Britton and her 4-year-old son in Hadley Green. February of 1974, so only a month later, and he breaks into the house of Isabel Griffith and stabs her to death using a kitchen knife to the stomach. During the investigation of this scene, the police found that the murderer had taken the time to position the victim on the floor in the kitchen, pinning her to the ground through the stomach with the knife. He then spent a fair amount of time in the apartment just listening to the radio.
Psychopath.
His escalation there is quite interesting. He starts off with strangulation, then beating, and then into stabbing all within a few months. So
this builds to a point where his final victim, which we'll come back to in a minute. I heard another podcast that talked about this, and they basically made a very good point that the escalation actually is almost like he's been testing lots of different methods.
Oh, find his fave.
Yeah.
And once I tell you about the last one, we can have a wee chat about that, because I hadn't actually thought about it until they mentioned it in its Blood Ties podcast. Excellent, and we'll put a link up to it in the description as always. So yeah, we'll come back to that in a second. But you make a very good point that I hadn't thought about when I was reading this. These were pretty much seemingly unrelated murders and would go unsolved until 1975, when Patrick MacKay confessed to them all. But only one of these is the crime that he was convicted of. He was basically just a man on the run from the law, killing randomly. Later on that year, in 1974, he was living with friends in the north of London, but they basically just put him out of the flat because he went a bit more crazy than he already was and started claiming to be possessed by the devil.
Oh, is this why the name?
Oh,
so the name that was given to him, the Devil's Disciple, was actually a newspaper headline at the time.
Okay.
Some horrible rag that we'll not mention. But the psychopath obviously comes from because he was diagnosed as that.
Yeah.
And the Devil's Disciple was from then. Instead of walking away quietly and accepting that his friends didn't want to leave with a man possessed by the devil, MacKay decided he would just rob the place.
Of course.
And he got caught for this again, which to me turns out he was a shite burglar, but he was on the run for 4 or 5 murders at this point, but couldn't burgle a house. And at this point he was sentenced to 6 months in jail, but obviously nobody still connected him to the murders. After doing his time at Her Majesty's pleasure, he was released and took straight to a spree of robbing and attacking older women, causing 3 more murders before the end of the year. He beat a tobacconist to death with a lead pipe, a 62-year-old tobacconist. He robbed 92-year-old Sarah Rodwell of her £10 Christmas bonus.
Aww.
Before beating her to death.
Great.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Why take the money then beat her?
Yeah, it's just...
Yeah.
Just take the money and go.
Just take the money and go, exactly. And he then killed Ivy Davis with an axe in Southend. She was a cafe owner. Once again, a bit of escalation there. In March of the following year, in 1975, MacKay broke into the home of elderly Adele Price, 89 years old, and strangled her in her own home in Kensington. He had forced his way into her flat and committed the horrible act, and then spent some time again in the flat, as he did with Isabella a year before. However, this time, he just went for a nap in the chair, having left her dead body in the kitchen.
Oh.
He was disturbed by Adele's granddaughter ringing the intercom, and he fled the scene before she let herself in. 11 days later, and he travelled back to Kent, and this was his most brutal of all the attacks. He turned his attention back to Father Crean, who he broke into the father's home, hit him several times over the head with an axe, stabbing him and beating him with his bare hands. The father's body was found floating in a bath full of bloody water by a nun who had gone to see where she was after she'd been concerned for having not seen him all day.
Oh, God.
Now, one of the reports I read indicated that there was blood on his hands, the father's hands, to the point where he must have grabbed at his own head after it had happened.
Oh.
And the head was opened up so badly you could see his brains inside.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that was a man who tried to help him.
That was a man who tried to turn him to the straight and narrow, essentially. MacKay was arrested only 2 days later after this, and he was charged. So they basically made a connection between him and the father from the previous crime and went to go and investigate him and decided that, well, you're a bit
Something a bit
something
weird
not
about
right
you.
here, so they arrested him. He was then charged with 5 counts of murder, but 2 of these were later dropped due to lack of evidence, and he was finally tried at the Old Bailey for the murders of Father Crean, Isabella Griffith, and Adele Price. In November 1975, he was found to be suffering from psychopathy and sentenced to a whole life term. The fact that he was found to be suffering from psychopathy and not to be clinically insane is quite an important point there, because if he was deemed to be clinically insane, he could have been treated at Broadmoor Hospital, whereas if you're a psychopath, it's deemed to be incurable, so he couldn't have been treated, so was handed a whole life term.
Oh.
He is still in prison to this day and is one of the longest serving prisoners in the British penal system. And there was reports this year that he was being tested for release under a different name, having been let into open prison circulation in the 90s. But that seems to have gone away. I couldn't find any more reports after April of this year. So, like I said, when you brought that up earlier, Emma, that it seems to me that he was testing on people he didn't give a shit about how he was going to kill the priest.
Yeah, it's almost like he was building up to what's the best way I can do this.
Or even what's the way that gives me the kicks the most.
Yeah. Well, like, even when you were talking about him being, when he was younger and hurting animals and stuff, like, he sounded experimental then, like, oh, put a dead bird under a car wheel, see what happens. Like, he seems to just, that's just his interest, I guess.
So I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning, but I thought he was a child of his upbringing, and I genuinely do say that without excusing anything he did. But I put here that at the time of his arrest, MacKay, when he was incarcerated, he had been detained, sectioned, or some other interactions with the law 19 times before he was finally brought to justice. He was only 22 at the time.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And he had had a horrific upbringing, and I'm not justifying any of this, but it goes to that nature-nurture debate that I think you and I have had this a couple of times, and I'm a believer that your environment produces who you are. However, I think he's been an extreme example of somebody that's been left in a violent upbringing and left to roam the streets and do what he wants, but had that tendency to absorb what was around him to shape him. Does that make sense? But then I wonder
as well, like, no, 100%. Like, I couldn't agree more, because I think as well, of course, the way you're brought up is going to affect you as a person. Like, it does for everybody, even in, like, good ways, you know? Like, that's absolutely. Just, you're brought up the way you're brought up, and the things that you see as a kid tend to influence you heavily as an adult. But then I wonder, like, the minute you said when his mum was pregnant, his dad delivered a swift kick to her belly, like, that stuck with me instantly as well, because there's always, in quite a lot of these cases, as well as, like, the mistreatment and stuff, sometimes they point to, like, a past trauma, like, at a young age. Like, I can't remember. I want to say it was Jeffrey Dahmer, but I'm not convinced it was. Somebody...
wish you could see Nadine's face right now.
There was one of them. Who was the one... Oh, shit. Who was the one American... Frank, perhaps? The one that used to, like, spank himself with a paddle with nails through it. Last podcast did a great episode. You know exactly who I'm talking about. Stop looking at me like that. Whatever. Somebody, like, one of the, like, a very, very prolific serial killer in America. They pointed to a past...
Is it Gacy?
Maybe it was Gacy. Maybe.
I mean, he was a freak.
He was a freak. Like, anyway, whoever it was, they were, like, climbing one of these ropes in gym class, you know, like, you have to climb up to the top, and his hand slipped and he fell, like, from a really big height and hit his head really hard. Actually, maybe it was from the Happy Face murders. Maybe it was Happy Face from that podcast.
I think that's right.
But he fell from this rope, and, like, they couldn't really point, like, they were like, yeah, he was, like, maybe his dad was a bit shit and stuff, but there wasn't any, like, real big abuse in his past, but he had this, like, trauma to his head as a kid, and from that moment seemed to have really changed as a person.
Well, that's one of the other things that people talk about, you know, is there's the triad of things, but there's also head trauma that goes alongside that as a kind of separate but attached issue. So, like, my point, trying to get, I know I've, like, diverted so far, but like, when she was pregnant, if that was, like, a really big blow at, like, a very, like, crucial stage of development, then, like, I wonder,
if that could have an
absolutely.
effect.
Yeah,
Um,
because there's also like the argument about genetics as well.
Yeah.
There was a really interesting, I think it was the podcast Sword and Scale, episode 2, had a really good interview with a man who he was doing a study on psychopaths and how you can see it in the psychopath brain. And he actually found during the study that his own brain showed a lot of the signs of the possibility of the being a psychopath as being part of your genetics.
Yeah.
But that he'd never had any of that trauma or anything that in his childhood would have like sparked it off.
Nadine's
That
just
was a
done
really
a happy
interesting
dance.
episode to listen to.
I know I'm doing a massive happy dance.
Nadine's
I love
just done a
this
happy
shit.
dance as you were talking there.
I love this stuff. You know I do. Like I love this stuff. Like I've like read John Ronson's The Psychopath Test. Like all the like I just think it's incredible. But in
Butterfly Effect, John Ronson.
so good.
Yeah.
But there is in the Happy Face podcast. If you've not listened to that, listen to that as well. They it's made by a woman who her dad was this horrendous serial killer. The things he did, I just don't even want to repeat. And she's very concerned that she shows a lot of the personality traits that he did, and she's worried that she's perhaps a psychopath. And she goes and sees this professor who studies psychopathy in people, and he like classifies himself as a psychopath, but he's like, but you know, like I don't want to hurt people, so you know I'm not a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad person to be one. I don't want to hurt people, so I don't. You know, but he's got these like traits and this like he struggles to like have empathy and stuff, you know, which is like a massive trait. So interesting. So I'm 100% going to go and listen to that episode.
Yeah, there's a really good thing where you can sort of do the test on yourself and see how much. I know a lot of these internet tests are pretty bogus.
Yeah.
But some of them, when you go into it, they are quite interesting to look at and see sort of like how you can mirror yourself up.
I know what I'm doing again.
I was going to say, we're both going to do that test, and we'll post the results later on. So yeah, that is the story of Britain's longest serving current inmate.
Wow.
Patrick MacKay, who goes on my list of bad bastards for sure. It's getting a longer and longer list every time we do this. But yeah,
very well done.
Thank you very much.
Very well told.
We are going to disappear on a break just
Before
now.
we do, can we actually settle something that I've always wanted to know the answer, well, people's opinion on?
Of course.
Because you said it one way and I said it a different way. You say psychopathy. I said psychopathy. Which is it? Emma, to decide.
I say psychopathy.
Oh, 2 against 1.
I'm being bullied. I'm being bullied by women here. I'm not all right with that.
And now we can rest.
Oh no! Now we can go for a break because you're winning. Is that right? So yeah, we're going to jump off for a break now. Refill our glasses. Emma, I hope you have a glass there somewhere.
Mine sadly is Lucozade, but I will refill it.
I'm with you on the soft drinks tonight.
Yeah, Nadine's off the drinks tonight, so I'll have one for both of you. How about that?
Fine.
That sounds good.
And we'll join you back again in 2 minutes.
Bye.
Hi there, my name is Claire, and I'm the host of a new podcast called Exercising Depression. Now, don't worry, it's not a podcast about how exercise is the best cure for depression, or the only antidepressant you'll ever need is a walk outside, blah blah blah. No, that's both annoying and inaccurate. But it is a podcast about me, your standard issue 30-something married British person, trying to live a normal life with mental health issues. I also just happen to enjoy torturing myself at the gym. There are many podcasts out there that talk about mental health and depression, but not a lot that discuss living every day with mental health problems. So, I decided to start one. You can listen to the Exercising Depression podcast on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and most other podcast providers. Mental illnesses and the stigma surrounding most facets of them need to be talked about more, and more openly. So, come on. Join me in the conversation with the Exercising Depression podcast.
And that's us back.
Hello.
I have a drink refilled.
I just have my little can of cola.
I hope your Lucozade is treating you well.
Oh, I have a Lucozade and a very sleepy dog.
Oh.
A sleepy dog sounds like an ace cocktail.
Oh.
Oh, I'm going to have to make that now.
I don't know what Drambuie,
No.
orange juice and gin.
It's going to have vodka in it because obviously his name's Spud.
Yeah, very good.
Excellent.
Yeah. I was going to say, is that your chosen tipple, is it?
Oh,
Oh no, it's not my favourite. I am a cider girl. I'm a Wiltshire.
I was going to say you're down that way, aren't you?
I think we can make some kind of cocktail that's like vodka cider.
I'm halfway through making pear cider.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, well, you've not seen what it looks like, but I'm sure it'll be lovely. Anyway, I digress. Nadine, you have a story to tell us.
I do indeed. And I did say that I was going to apologise on the air. I think we talked about maybe 2 episodes ago the happy news that I've got a brand new job that I'm very excited about. Woohoo! Woohoo! But along with that job is a relocation. I am leaving my beloved Stirling town, my home, and I'm going off to Glasgow. Only a short jaunt up the road, but nonetheless a jaunt. And boo. Today is my first time commuting for the podcast.
And she couldn't work the train.
Rude.
Couldn't work the train?
No, I've had a day and a half. Like, I did drive here, but yeah, I actually only like really officially moved today. I did the bulk of my moving yesterday, but I still had a lot to do today. It's been a bit of a shite-mare of a weekend, all in all.
A shite-mare?
A shite-mare.
Wow.
I like that.
Thank you.
I was going to go with clusterfuck, but shite-mare is good.
Shite-mare. So I've been a little bit frazzled and a little bit stressed, but here I am. I have a story to tell. It's a bit mishmash and a bit, but it's like an upbeat, fun time story.
Did you research it yourself?
Yes, I did, I promise.
Okay.
So,
well, his.
okay. I thought I'd do like a piece on real life heroes is what I'm going to call it.
Real life heroes?
Yeah.
Are they British?
Yeah.
Is it crime?
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Oh.
So real life heroes, instead of going down the path of like ordinary people who are like doing incredible things all the time, I went down the path of ordinary people who'd like to do incredible things all the time and dress as superheroes so that they can.
The look on Emma, I genuinely wish I could share her face with you right now, because she is, I would say, overly impressed with herself, actually.
I'm really happy with this one. So
I am a superhero fan, so I look forward to this one.
I know, that's why I got the idea. That's why I thought I'd do
Hey.
it. It's for you as well. We're so nice.
Like you don't say it out loud.
So, the first 2 people I'm going to talk about are my favourites. So, father of 2 and daytime financial advisor, Will, also known as the Dark Spartan.
Nice.
And his mysterious sidekick, the Black Void.
They were definitely drunk when they came up with these.
No, they came up with them separately.
Oh, wow.
So they patrol the streets every Friday and Saturday night looking for troublemakers in the troublesome, horrendous town of Torquay, Devon.
Yeah, the metropolis that is.
So the pair, well, I say it like that, they do this still. Apparently they don't. I'm really sad. I couldn't find any like modern day active vigilante superheroes right now, so I've had to tell the story of like loads of past ones, but they're pretty good. So they wore homemade suits complete with police riot shields and helmets bought on eBay. And they would stalk the darker corners of the Devon resort town, which is my favourite thing. So Will, also known as the Dark Spartan, which I'm only going to refer to him as.
Oh, I was going to say, stop calling him Will. That's not his name.
The Dark Spartan, accompanied by the Black Void, who was a comic book shop worker. He wore yeah.
I was about to say, of course he was, yeah.
He wore a Spider-Man mask to hide his identity.
Well, that's unoriginal. He's taken over someone else's superhero.
I know, it's rubbish. At least the Dark Spartan had his own costume.
Make your own mask.
Just rubbish, isn't it? He also carried a cane for self-defense.
He was a gentleman riot shield wielding man.
Yep.
With a Spider-Man mask on.
To be fair, when you said Dark Void, the mask could have
Black
been...
Void, excuse me.
Sorry, the Black Void. The mask could have been quite something.
He could have at least gone with Venom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking Gimp mask, but okay.
Oh, Bob, you always have to ruin everything.
No, this is why we're not highbrow.
True. The next bad review is definitely on you. So the Black Void sadly did admit to suffering from irritable bowel syndrome, but hilariously did admit that it could become inflamed if the situation got a little tasty.
Oh, that's
In his own
horrible.
words, a little tasty.
You don't want to have an IBS in a rubber suit.
Oh,
Why are you? I never said he wore a rubber suit. You've just dressed this man as a full gimp for no reason.
I've got a picture in my head that's really horrible.
So the unlikely crime-fighting duo, who at the time of the documentary that was made about them, were yet to actually catch any troublemakers. They featured in a Channel 4 documentary which was called First Cut, Superheroes of Suburbia, which really sadly I could not find a copy to watch.
Oh, it must be
I
on
need
YouTube.
to find that.
It
I
has
know.
to be somewhere.
I'm desperate to watch it. First aired in 2011, and it followed the story of the Dark Spartan and the Black Void, as well as a former soldier called Ken, who operated as the Shadow and used ninjutsu techniques and smoke bombs to tackle boy racers in Yeovil, Somerset.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
No.
How do I join this gang?
They also followed the story of Kieran, who was a 17-year-old comic book obsessive from Yorkshire who took on the persona of Noir to target muggers.
Yep, fine.
Fantastic,
Perfect target.
So back to the Dark Spartan.
Made me think a little bit of Kick-Ass there.
Yeah, I know, a little
Yeah,
bit.
absolutely.
Noir's quite a good name. I quite like that. Sounds
Yeah.
a bit
Yeah.
exotic.
I would instantly think female superhero, though, I think.
Would you?
Yeah.
I could maybe see that.
Well, you say that, but there is that kids program. My nephews love it. The Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir.
Oh.
no.
And Cat Noir's male.
Oh, there
Oh,
you
okay.
And
go.
he is literally, Bob, you'll love this. He is male. It's a cartoon, but he's male and he wears a leather catsuit.
Oh,
That might have to be
that's
what
the
I
Halloween. That's the Halloween this year. Sorted.
I was going to say I might have to introduce Isaac to it, but you've turned it sordid.
Oh, no. The thing is, I mean, I slightly guilty pleasure when we were watching it because it actually was quite interesting to watch.
I might start watching it.
Yeah, no, I can't deviate from Land Before Time, I'm afraid.
It's a classic.
Oh, Lamb Full Time. Stick to that one. That
Yeah.
is good.
So the Dark Spartan began patrolling the streets of his hometown in Torquay after coming out to his wife Julie, which he did by saying to her, stop raising your eyebrows, not that coming out, came out as a superhero, obviously.
Okay.
I'm so glad you were thinking the same thing.
I had the same thing in my head.
He revealed himself by saying to her, I'm off out tonight, love, to patrol the streets of Torquay and check out some crime.
Just check it out.
Check out some crime.
See, now, that would have made me more suspicious.
I know, but
Because that is a rubbish cover story.
well, the best thing is that Julie tells First Cut, the documentary that was made about him, I wasn't that surprised. I've heard worse from him, to be honest.
He sounds like a lad.
What's he getting up to all the time?
His wife is probably very much like mine that just goes, yeah, whatever.
Oh, see you later. So the Dark Spartan found the Black Void after trawling Facebook for a local sidekick, and the pair quickly became friends. They then had a joint Facebook page where they'd post videos of them in action, and no, I couldn't find the page either.
Aww.
Sad. I also tried to look into the identity of the Black Void, because we know that the Dark Spartan is a financial advisor called Will. But the Black Void, couldn't find him. His identity
Well, that's 'cause he's a
remains...
Black Void.
I know. Well, it's because of the Spider-Man mask.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Unless he hangs
There's too many
upside.
Spider-Man.
He hangs upside and kisses Mary Jane. That's all I know.
I also couldn't find any new articles concerning them since 2011, which is kind of sad. So, 2011 is when the documentary came out, and they were still prevalent in the dangerous town of Torquay. And
Well, maybe because his identity had been revealed at that point, it was
Yeah.
kind of like...
Will gave up. Poor Will.
And also, maybe it's not dangerous now because of them.
No.
yeah.
See? Beautiful resort now.
Oh, thank you, Dark Spartan and the Black Void, for everything that you do. Sadly, though, yeah, no articles, so they're not in action anymore. The First Cut director, Christian Watt, said, "It took me a few months to track these guys down, and like all true superheroes, they were reluctant to reveal themselves. Some might say it seems quite absurd to watch them at times, but when you hear their background story, you could say they are quite brave." And again, I couldn't really find what they're... Like, I imagine that if I'd seen the documentary, I'd know their background story, but I do not.
I would also say, I'll give them that. I mean, that is a brave thing to do.
It is
Like,
quite brave.
to go out and actually go, do you know what? Fuck this, I'm going to sort some stuff out.
Yeah.
That does take some guts.
It's
'cause
quite sweet, really, isn't it?
It is really sweet.
So when when we hear of the superhero Sterling,
It will not be either
He'll
of
be
us.
Bob in a gimp suit. I can't
I'll
wait.
be the settle special. Oh no, I'm really bad at
The
these things.
settle special.
Yeah, that's me.
Great. Oh no, what was it you called yourself last week? The Super Flash.
The Super Flash. That episode's not gone out yet, so
The Super
spoilers.
Super Flash.
Idiot.
Thanks.
Oh god, I need to get back into it. Hold on. So the director said about the Dark Spartan, the police always seemed friendly but occasionally worried for his safety. And a spokesman for Devon and Cornwall Police had said, we are aware of the presence of the Dark Spartan in Torquay, but we are not aware of any issues. Police will continue to deal with the incidents as part of normal duties and investigate any allegations. So I think people were like a bit worried that he was like gonna cause trouble, or like trouble would come and find him, like, you know, on purpose.
He'd
and
gone
stuff.
full rogue and became a criminal himself.
Stopping his own
I was
crimes.
thinking more that the criminals would come out and go and try and stop him before he stopped them.
No.
And yeah, I mean, and I don't know Torquay very well, but I can't imagine it's a particularly big place where they just go, well, we'll find out who Will is.
Yeah, I know. Especially after the documentary. What a shame. But I thought that was quite a good one. They're my two favourites.
Yep, absolutely love that.
So next up, we have comic book fan Tanis Baker, who at the time was 21. This is back in 2012. And he was from South Wales. And he'd dress up as a masked ninja. And he found himself in court after police mistook his homemade wooden samurai sword for a real weapon.
No.
Yeah.
That is a weapon.
It is a weapon, but it's not a real samurai sword.
It's still a weapon.
Well, yeah, but people think. I mean, when I was out on Saturday night taking Spud for his walk, I had put round loads of lights on his lead so I could see it in the dark easier. And somebody in the distance was like, "I thought you had a glowing sword." And I was like, "No, it's a dog on a lead."
Is that a common
So
thing
people
around
can
your way?
mistake them. No, that's the first time. That's the first time I've done it either, so I might not do it again.
At least maybe it looked like you were walking with a lightsaber. I'd be alright with that.
That's what I'm wondering he meant, really. I'd be happier if he said lightsaber.
A glowing sword sounds like a man who knew something but not enough.
Bless him. I quite like the story of Tanis Baker, though, because like I feel a bit sad for him, actually. So he said he used to dress up and go and try and fight crime because he wanted to strike fear into criminals to avenge a street attack on him.
Oh, okay.
Sad, isn't it?
Oh.
So he wore a balaclava and armed himself with a wooden sword and smoke bombs. And at Beechwood Park around 12:30 a.m. on the September 6th, 2012, he sat crouched on top of the park gates, keeping watch for criminals when he was spotted by a police officer. Excellent.
That is a beautiful mental image as well.
I know.
You know he had that proper like Spider-Man superhero pose on the wall
like
as well.
The
like,
fingers on the floor in front of him,
absolutely,
like crouched
like
on
he's
his
landed
haunches.
off the top of a building nearby.
Your like legs would get really sore. You'd have to cross them for a while.
Maybe he's been working on his thighs though.
Maybe he has. Believing he was carrying an actual samurai sword, the officer called for backup, and the police helicopter was scrambled as were the dog handlers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I bet the police
Oh, bless
guys,
him.
I bet the police guys were like, when they found out what it was, they were like, "What the fuck have we just done?" And the
Yeah.
helicopter pilot was like, "To be fair, I wasn't doing anything anyway."
I know. Sat around. Bless him. He told police in an interview he was a vigilante in a costume and that he wanted to help people in trouble. Baker was bullied for many years and struggled growing up in his neighbourhood. And when he was younger, he was attacked by a gang of youths whilst out with his sister, and the police were like unable to find the offenders.
Now I feel bad for. I wasn't slagging him, but
I
I feel
know,
bad.
it's sad.
Yeah.
And like the other thing that they said, like in his court case, was that like he was like a comic book fanatic, like loved them, and he sometimes like struggled to remember what was reality and what was fiction. Like kind of got a bit too much involved in comics and stuff. Bless him.
Yeah.
So he got a bit confused. He was sentenced to a 12-month supervision order just to be kept an eye on because
Yeah.
like, he wasn't really doing any danger at that.
But they were like, "Look, mate,
You
you
know,
can't do this."
Well, literally, exactly. Chair of the Magistrates, Paul Lavin, said to him, "You may have thought you were helping, but you've caused a lot of trouble. Do not do this in future or else you'll be in big trouble."
I think that's fair.
Fair. He also had to complete 60 hours unpaid work and pay £85 in court costs.
Now that's not fair.
Sin, isn't it?
No.
What? So he's out cutting the local the grass in the local park, community
Sad,
service
isn't it?
type. That's he's not done anything wrong.
No, not really, has he?
I mean, he's used up police time, but
But the police time was because the policeman mistook what he had.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
not really his fault.
Kind of on him a bit, isn't it? To be like, yo, what are you doing on those gates with that samurai sword?
looking sweet as.
In a balaclava. Actually, that'd be terrible. Imagine walking home.
Just walking home from the pub. That guy.
There's
does
a man wearing a balaclava on top of a gate holding a sword. You'd be like, oh my god, I'm about to die.
He doesn't look like a vigilante.
Oh.
He looks like somebody that's about to jump you.
Well, see, in Swindon, people will probably just cross the road and carry on.
Yeah, Sterling night out. You'd be surprised.
I fear for my move to Glasgow. Maybe I have to like toughen up and
Yeah,
get
you-
used to this kind of stuff.
You went and viewed a flat in somewhere that this will happen.
Oh, that was rough as hell today. I'm not going to say where it was, but my God, it was a rough end of town.
I know where
So
it
much
was.
so that the estate agent like turned up and he went, do you know this area? And I went, no. And he went, I do. And I'm telling you now, this is not the home for you.
Wow.
Maybe you could become the vigilante though.
Oh, clearing up the area.
Get your mask on and
Oof.
no.
No, I think I'd just hide inside. The best part of it, I know this is like so off topic, but the best part about the viewing was he took us up in the flat, right? He's showing us around and he's like, oh, yeah, if you look out the back, it looks clean now, but like everybody in this building just chucks their rubbish out the windows. And he was like, there's a massive rat problem. There are rats all over there. And he was like, I went out there one day and I kicked a rock. And he was like, it was like the Grand National. There was rats everywhere. And I was like, oh my God.
He is not a great salesman.
No, he's not.
Wow.
Just an honest man, though. He's looking out for me. Big
You
appreciation.
can argue that an honest salesman's quite hard to come by, and
Yeah, he was so.
honesty sells more in other places.
Yeah, no, he was so funny. And then he was like, the best part was like, yep, you do get some characters in around here. He was like, in this close especially. I mean, Peter upstairs, whew, what a man. And I've been like, my mind's been running.
Was it Peter Parker?
Running out. Oh my God. My mind's been like running since, like, who's Peter? How is he a character?
You need to get this flat
I'm
now.
gonna have to take it. Meet Peter, the crazy man from upstairs. Oh, anyway, back on topic. Enough of rats. My final superhero, one of my favorites, 2003, widely known, Angle Grinder Man.
Angle Grinder Man.
Everybody's
Angle.
favorite. Angle Grinder Man.
So,
Okay.
so before you go any further,
Do you want to make a guess?
no. Well, I was going to say I've seen a lovely live performance while I was in Holland, shall we say, of a lady that used an angle grinder.
Was
on
she
a
wearing like metal pants?
Yeah,
by
she
chance?
was exactly wearing metal pants.
Oh dear.
Was that Angle Grinder Man?
No,
No. Okay.
no, but that might have been his fair lady. We don't know. So, Angle Grinder Man was a self-proclaimed superhero who patrolled at night looking for unhappy drivers who've been clamped, and he'd set their cars free.
I see. He might be a hero.
He might be a real-life hero. So, he promised to take on clamping firms, speed cameras, and the congestion charge on behalf of drivers. He was an odd job man by day, but he claimed to operate in Kent during the night, and at like during the week he'd be in Kent, London at the weekends. True hero.
Yeah, odd job man.
Oh.
Odd man at the weekend.
Working all of the shifts. He had a website.
Did you find it?
No.
Oh.
He had a website back in the day. On the website, there was a hotline number that offered a free wheel clamp removal service. If you called the number, you'd get a phone message, like an answer machine, and the phone message would say, leave a message after the grinding sound.
Oh, nice.
I love him so much. The unnamed man, by the way, still unnamed, the unnamed man who wore a costume of gold boots and crotch-hugging pants over a blue leotard said he was happy to take the risk.
That's a solid
That was a
look.
horrible
That's
mental
a
picture.
solid costume.
That's a solid look.
Oh, I might go as Angle Grinder Man for Halloween.
I'll go as the Black Void. Dark Void.
Black Void, right the first time.
Black Void.
Dark
You go as
Spartan,
Angle-
Black
Angle
Void.
Grinder Man. You're...
I'm I'm going to go to the Balaclava Ninja.
Yes.
You have to send us pictures.
Let's all meet up and solve crime. Amazing. He said, it's a public service. I, for one, am prepared to fight for what is fair, and I'm making myself available to the public. I may not be able to single-handedly and totally cast off the repressive shackles of a corrupt government, but I can cut off your wheel clamps for you.
Yeah.
I love him. I think he's fab.
That's actually brilliant.
I know. He did decide to go full-time vigilante and give up the odd jobs. And he said, my obsession with wheel clamping is actually a rebellion against a much deeper malaise. Namely, the arrogant contempt that politicians hold for the people who put them into power and whom they claim to represent.
But
Fight
you've
the
still
man.
parked in the wrong place.
Fight the man.
Fight the man.
Fight the power. Back in 2003, a Kent Police spokeswoman said no complaint about wheel clamps being cut off had been made by either a clamping firm or a member of the public so far, and a spokeswoman for the Metropolitan Police said they could not investigate unless a crime was reported. So, the mystery of the angle grinder man continues.
He is
fair play.
he is a society's hero.
I know, and I couldn't find anything like more recent about him, apart from one really sad article titled, Whatever Happened to Ankle Grinder Man?
What did happen?
Nobody knows.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you and I will have to post a photo of the two of us in some kind of superhero cape. I sent you that challenge, Nadine.
The challenge accepted, sir.
Emma, if you'd like to
I
go
like
on board,
that idea.
you are more than welcome to join us. Obviously,
I will.
stay anonymous as much as you wish.
I will.
Oh,
have
get
to dig out
a
a couple of
Spider-Man
superhero
mask
items.
on. Nobody will know it's you.
Yeah, get your good mask. Well,
That's it. That's all I've got for you. Sorry.
I'm going to go out there and say, well, that is the oddest set of stories you've done so far. However, I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Look, I looked for superhero murder and stuff to do special, and there just wasn't one, okay?
This is a special
Which is
episode.
good. Let's not let that
Yeah,
happen.
let's not let that happen.
No, that's true.
No ideas for any of you crazies out there.
There's been enough of that in the comics and the films.
Yeah, true
Indeed.
this.
And I believe in the next Avengers is called Avengers Angle Grinder.
Return of the Black Void.
It's a sad story. To be fair, I'm still not over Endgame, and I'll not spoil it for anybody
Let's
who's not
not talk
watched it.
about it, please.
Because
I'm still wrong.
If there are people that still haven't watched it, I'm very sad for them.
So
as am I. Yeah.
Me and my best friend, we were at midnight release, double bill.
See, I wish I was, but I have a 2-year-old, so we only saw it.
Yeah, that's a bit.
We only saw it 2 weeks ago, my wife and I, and we left the theatre at about 2:30 in the morning, having watched the only showing that they had in Stirling that day, and it's a 10-minute walk from the cinema down to my house.
Yeah.
All I got on the way home.
Cried the whole way.
Well, I had a slight frog in my throat, shall we say, and I had my wife in my ear going, "Well, that's not right." I have too many questions at the end of this. I was like, "Oh God!" So we were up till quite late talking about a certain alien female and her appearances in it.
Yeah.
Nadine's shaking her head at me, and I believe you.
I'm going to go and talk to Rosalind.
You and I may know what we're talking about here, Emma. But that was great. I loved that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um,
Don't thank me.
No,
Thank the
it was
Dark
very
Spartan,
fun.
the Black Void, the Ninja, and Ankle Grinder Man.
I would like
Ankle
to.
grinder man.
I wonder what the legal status of vigilantism is.
I don't know.
Like, these guys have gone out to do good, obviously.
Yeah.
But
none of them got in trouble apart from... Yeah, none of them got in trouble apart from young Baker, Tanis Baker.
But I wonder if it's a thing that you're like... you see all this pish from the States every now and again about bounty hunters and vigilante groups and all that kind of stuff, and it's almost accepted as part of law fighting over there. I know that's not the right term, but anyway. But I wonder what it's like here. That doesn't seem to me like something that the police would be happy about.
I don't know.
I think the closest thing I can really think of that we've had here really has been something like Fathers for Justice.
Yeah, that came up in like my searches, obviously.
I wondered if that's what you were going to talk about.
Oh,
those guys are amazing.
They are great. I remember they've not done stuff for a while. Well, they've not been on the news for a while, have they? Like when one of them like climbed that building and stuff, huh? And it was like a big hoo-ha on the news.
He was dressed as Spider-Man.
Yeah, he was.
I was going to say that. There's also the French guy. I don't know if either of you have seen him.
Yeah.
The human Spider-Man that climbs the buildings. Love
He's
him.
amazing.
Oh, I couldn't watch it.
Oh, really? You see, that's my love in life is rock climbing, outside of podcasting, obviously.
But see, there has been a lot of vigilante stuff, because I've tried to do this before, but like not specifically people dressed as superheroes, because some of my favorite things that make my day, my favorite stories of all time to come across on the internet, are stuff like there was that old woman when these boys on mopeds pulled up to a jewelry store and they went to rob it and they smashed all the windows, and she came running across, whacking them with their handbag.
She beat them
yeah,
away,
and they all
didn't
went
she?
away.
Yeah.
Amazing. There was the old woman who was in the shop trying to buy a can of mushy peas when a guy came in with a gun and tried to like rob the cashier, and she hit him on the head with the mushy peas. And like people love this, and like they get thanked
beautiful.
for it. People love it. Like the police are like, "Thank you very much. You're very brave."
To be fair, you don't fuck with an old woman, do you?
No, don't come at them. They will hit you with whatever's in their hand.
And normally, I speak from experience, not in a bad way. I used to be a carer. Let's point that out first.
Uh-huh.
A lot of old women's handbags are very heavy and filled with lots of random things.
As is mine. I'm already halfway there. Like
You're an old woman in your 20s.
25, more like 85.
Yeah, that was great. I loved that.
Thank you.
We're going to wrap up as normal here. Before we do, we're going to say a massive thank you to you, Emma, for joining us this evening.
And we're also going to
Thank you for having me.
congratulate you on your 10K walk.
And if you
Thank you.
And if you have any way of anybody listening that wants to contribute towards your charity and your 10K walk, please do share it on Twisted Britain's site, and we'll throw it around everywhere we possibly can.
And well done to
I'll,
Spud as well. That's a big walk for a little pup.
Yeah, totally. Well done. Well done, Spud.
I'll share a photo on the page of how he looked when he finished, and I'm sure everybody will enjoy it.
Oh,
Yeah, please do.
I will also point out he did also get his own medal for it.
Oh,
cool.
I love that.
Can wear that with his Twisted Britain badge proudly.
Yes.
So thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having
We've
you.
loved it.
We would love to have you back on again anytime if you fancy it. If you come up with a story for us, give us a shout. We'll research it and do our best for you. Let's hook up again in a few months once we've caught up with all the stuff that we have to do.
Definitely love that.
And again, just thanks so much for supporting us.
Yeah,
it
you
means
are
the world to us.
one of our favourite people. There is
You guys bring a lot into me with listening to you guys. Like I said, having sort of like started to recently develop a bit more love for podcasts, and I've said this before to Bethan as well with hers, but listening to you guys on the way to work, and it just makes what can be sometimes quite a long journey really enjoyable.
Oh,
thank you very much. We're absolutely honoured that we can be part of it. If anybody who's listening who hasn't listened to us before, please do rate and subscribe and review and do anything that is the normal for a podcast. We will be found everywhere you can possibly find a podcast. I think we're everywhere.
Yeah.
Spotify had a bit of a moment there, but I think it's back up.
We're on YouTube.
Oh, we are on YouTube. Oh, yeah. I keep forgetting about this every
Yes, so
week.
do I.
So we automatically post to YouTube. It's a video of the podcast, but it's just a holding image because we aren't videoing ourselves. That's far too much.
God.
If you
Not yet.
Well, don't do that. If you do like what you hear, please do follow us on all the social media sites. You'll find us on Twitter.
Twisted Britain.
You'll find us on Facebook.
Twisted Britain.
You'll find us on Instagram.
Twisted Britain.
If you want to be as cool as Emma, you can join us on our Twisted Britain discussion group on Facebook.
Named as such.
You can find us by searching Twisted Britain discussion group, which is now spelt correctly.
Yay!
Yay!
If you like what you hear and you would like to contribute anything to our hosting fees and our ability to keep Twisted Britain going, we have a Patreon. We don't like asking about it.
No.
But if you go into Patreon and search Twisted Britain, you will find us, where we have a couple of different tiers, and you are always guaranteed to become one of our favourite people by doing that.
For sure. And maybe you could do what Emma's just done and join us on air.
Yes, please do. We have another one coming up next couple of episodes. We're having another one of our lovely patrons join us.
Lovely Vicky
from Sticky Sounds Zine.
Yeah.
Which we got a copy of from her, and it's
my favourite.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Emma, we'll point you in the right direction for her because I think you'd love it as well. Actually.
Yeah.
We actually also need to hype up another one of our Patreons. We played her promo just there on our break.
We did.
That is Claire, and it's a podcast called Exercising Depression Pod.
Claire's doing some wonderful things there, and please do subscribe to her and give her a listen.
Give her podcast a little go because it is wonderful.
Tell her you found her through us as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to say again, Emma, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure this evening.
Yeah, it's been such fun.
Oh, it's been lovely. Thank you.
And we will speak to you again very, very soon.
Yes, definitely.
But for now, we will leave you with... do you want to do first, or shall I?
No, let's do Isaac first.
So this is my 2-year-old son doing his thank you, love you, goodbye.
Thank you, love you, bye.
It's so cute, it hurts me.
Oh.
I love him so much. He's such an angel baby. I love him.
Oh, he's adorable.
He's so precious.
Thank you, love you, bye.
Thank you, love you, bye.
Thank you, love you, bye.